The Silver Zephyr. The air in Portland, Maine, carried the sharp, salt-kissed scent of the Atlantic. It was that blue hour of the morning, the time when the world feels suspended between dreams and reality. You stand on the platform of the old brick station. In your hand is a heavy, cream-colored cardstock ticket. It feels cool to the touch. Ahead of you sits the Silver Zephyr, a train made of polished steel that reflects the dim morning light like a mirror. The conductor, a man with a voice as deep and steady as a cello, nods as you board. The interior of the train smells faintly of cedarwood and old books. You find your private sleeper car. It is a small, perfect sanctuary. The seats are upholstered in a soft, navy blue velvet. A heavy wool blanket sits folded on the corner, smelling of fresh linen. As you settle into the seat, the train gives a gentle, rhythmic shudder. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the station begins to slide away. The Maine woods. The Silver Zephyr weaves through the thickets of the northeast. Outside your window, the white birch trees stand like ghosts against the dark green of the pines. The sound of the train is a lullaby. It is a steady, metallic heartbeat, thrum-thrum, thrum-thrum. You watch the landscape transform. We pass small, quiet ponds where the water is as still as glass, reflecting the gray-blue sky. Occasionally you see a farmhouse in the distance, a warm yellow light glowing in a single window, a sign of someone starting their day with a quiet cup of coffee. The rhythm of the rails begins to settle into your own breathing. Inhale as the train rounds a bend, exhale as it straightens out through a clearing. There is no rush. There is nowhere else you need to be. The City of Lights. As evening approaches, the train skirts the edges of the great cities. The wild greens of New England give way to the rhythmic patterns of the mid-Atlantic. You see the skyline of New York City from a distance, a shimmering forest of glass and light. But from inside your cabin, the city feels like a silent movie. You see the amber glow of street lamps and the red ribbons of taillights on the bridges. The train moves through the tunnels with a deep, echoing hum. The darkness outside the window is velvety and thick. You reach for the wool blanket and pull it over your lap. It has a comforting weight. The temperature in the cabin is perfectly cool, making the warmth of the blanket feel even more inviting. The Great Crossing. The air changes as the Silver Zephyr moves west. The salty dampness of the coast has been replaced by the scent of sun-warmed earth and dry grass. You wake from a light doze just as the train approaches the Mississippi River. Crossing the great river is a slow, majestic process. The bridge is a massive skeleton of iron, and as the train wheels move onto it, the sound changes. The clack-clack becomes a deep, resonant hollow ring. You look down and see the water, vast, silted, and moving with a heavy, ancient power. Small tugboats sit anchored near the banks, their tiny white lights bobbing in the wake of the current. You watch a single ripple travel from the center of the river all the way to the muddy shore, disappearing under the hanging branches of a willow tree. Everything here moves at the speed of the water. The Sea of Grass. Once across the river, the landscape opens up into the Great Plains. To many this is flyover country, but to you, from the window of your sleeper car, it is a mesmerizing sea of amber. The horizon stretches out until it curves with the earth. There are no hills to break the view, only the occasional cluster of silver silos reflecting the afternoon sun like modern cathedrals. The sensory details of the plains. The sound, a constant, rushing wind that whistles softly against the double-paned glass of your window. The sight, fireflies beginning to blink in the tall bluestem grass as the sun dips lower. The feeling, the gentle side-to-side sway of the train car, like a cradle moving through a field of wheat. You watch a lone hawk circling a thermal high above. It doesn't flap its wings, it simply rests on the air, perfectly still while moving miles at a time. You find yourself mimicking that stillness. Your shoulders drop. Your jaw relaxes. The dining car at dusk. Hunger is a quiet suggestion, not a demand. You leave your cabin and walk down the narrow, carpeted hallway. The carpet is a thick, hunter-green wool that swallows the sound of your footsteps. The dining car is lit by small, brass lamps with pleated shades. Each table is set with white linen and heavy silver forks that feel cool and substantial in your hand. You order a simple meal, perhaps a bowl of wild rice soup and a piece of crusty bread. Through the large panoramic windows, the sunset is performing a slow-motion symphony. First, a brilliant, burning orange that touches the tops of the corn stalks. Then, a soft, dusty rose that settles over the barns and fences. Finally, a deep, bruised purple that signals the coming of the stars. By the time you finish your tea, the world outside is in ink-black velvet, punctuated only by the distant, lonely light of a porch lamp on a far-off ranch. The foothills and the thinning air. As the flat horizons of the plains begin to ripple, the Silver Zephyr starts its long, rhythmic ascent. The transition is subtle at first, a slight tilt in the floor of your cabin, a deeper groan from the locomotives ahead as they pull against the gravity of the continent. The air outside changes. The humid warmth of the Midwest falls away, replaced by a crisp, sharp clarity. You crack the small vent in your window just a fraction of an inch. The scent that rushes in is intoxicating: crushed pine needles, cold granite, and the smell of ancient snow. You are entering the shadows of the Front Range. The mountains rise like blue-gray giants against the starlight. There are no city lights here, only the moon, reflecting off the jagged peaks, making them look like waves of white foam frozen in midair. The tunnel of silence. The train enters a long mountain tunnel. Suddenly, the world outside vanishes. The window becomes a black mirror, reflecting the soft, warm glow of your reading lamp. In the darkness of the tunnel, the acoustics of the journey shift. The wind noise disappears. The sound is now a low, bass-heavy vibration that you feel in your chest more than you hear with your ears. It is a protective sound, the feeling of being tucked safely inside the earth, moving through the heart of the mountain. You lie back against the pillows. The pillowcase is cool against your cheek. You imagine the millions of tons of stone above you, silent and unmoving for eons. You feel the weight of the mountain grounding you, holding the train steady as it bores through the dark. The high alpine meadow. When the Silver Zephyr finally emerges from the tunnel, you are high up, at the roof of the world. The train slows to a crawl, navigating the S-curves of the Continental Divide. Outside, you see a high alpine meadow. It is a moonscape of silver grass and stunted trees. The creek, a narrow ribbon of snowmelt water, runs parallel to the tracks, bubbling over white stones. The wildlife. In the distance, a group of elk stands perfectly still, their breath forming small puffs of steam in the moonlight. They watch the train pass with calm, dark eyes. The atmosphere. Everything is draped in a thin veil of frost. The train's whistle blows, but up here, the sound doesn't echo. It is swallowed instantly by the vast, open space of the high altitude. It is a lonely, beautiful sound, a reminder that you are a small, cozy traveler in a very big, very quiet world. The Great Descent. Now, the gravity that worked against you begins to work for you. The train begins its long, winding glide down toward the red rock deserts of Utah. The engineer uses the dynamic brakes, a system that creates a low, electrical hum. It sounds like a giant purring. The rhythm changes from a pull to a gentle hold. You feel yourself being rocked forward and back, as the train weaves through the canyons. The walls of the canyon rise up on either side of the tracks, glowing a deep, burnt orange even in the moonlight. You close your eyes and let the purr of the brakes vibrate through your bed. You are descending, sinking deeper into the soft layers of sleep, just as the train sinks into the heart of the desert. The red sands of Utah. As the sun begins its slow ascent, the world outside your window is no longer green or gray. It is a spectrum of fire. The train has entered the canyonlands of Utah. The rock formations here are like melting wax, towers of sandstone called hoodoos, that have been carved by the wind for millions of years. The Silver Zephyr follows the path of a dry riverbed. The sand is a deep, ochre red, and where the morning light hits it, it glows like an ember in a dying fire. You watch the shadows retreat. They are long and indigo, stretching across the desert floor like velvet ribbons. There is no movement here, no trees to rustle, no birds to chirp. Just the ancient, patient stone. The train is the only thing moving in this prehistoric world, and its steady hum feels like a secret shared between the machine and the earth. The white silence of the salt flats. By midday, the red rocks give way to something even more surreal, the Bonneville Salt Flats. Imagine a world that is perfectly flat and perfectly white, stretching out until it meets the sky at a razor-thin line. It looks like a frozen sea, but it isn't cold. It is a crust of ancient salt, shimmering under the high sun. The glare is softened by the tinted glass of your cabin. The train speeds up here, finding a long, straight stretch of track that goes on for 50 miles without a single turn. The visual, the horizon disappears. The white earth meets the pale blue sky, and for a moment, you feel as though the train is floating in a cloud. The sound, the clack-clack, becomes faster, more consistent, a rapid, soothing pulse. The sensation, you feel a sense of immense space. There are no walls, no buildings, no to-do lists. Just the infinite white. The loneliest road. As afternoon turns to evening, you enter Nevada. You see the loneliest road in America, Route 50, winding parallel to the tracks. Occasionally, you see a single silver car moving along the pavement, miles away. You watch its dust cloud rise slowly, and then settle back into the sagebrush. You find yourself wondering about the traveler in that car, but the thought is heavy and slow. You wish them well, then return your gaze to the sagebrush, a sea of dusty green and silver gray that smells of spice and rain, even though the air is bone-dry. The train passes through small, dusty outposts. A single crossing gate rings its bell, ding, ding, ding. The sound fades almost instantly as the train leaves the tiny town behind, retreating back into the safety of the desert. The dome car at twilight. You decide to walk to the observation dome car. This is a car with a ceiling made entirely of glass, offering a 360-degree view of the universe. The sun is setting behind the Sierra Nevada mountains in the distance. The sky isn't just one color, it's a gradient of lemon yellow, burnt orange, and a deep, royal violet. Because there are no city lights for hundreds of miles, the stars don't wait for the sun to fully disappear. They begin to poke through the violet veil, one by one, then dozen by dozen. You sink into one of the swivel chairs. The air in the dome car is slightly warmer from the day's sun, smelling of faint ozone and heated glass. You lean your head back against the headrest and look straight up. The Milky Way begins to emerge, a river of stardust that mirrors the tracks you are traveling on. The rhythm of the basin. The train enters a rhythm known as the long glide. In the basin, the tracks are so straight and the ground so level that the locomotive barely has to work. You return to your sleeper car. The steward has already turned down your bed. The sheets are pulled back at a perfect 45-degree angle. You climb in, feeling the crispness of the cotton against your skin. Outside, the desert is now a world of silhouettes. The sagebrush looks like low, rolling waves. The mountains are dark cutouts against the star-choked sky. You feel the train lean gently into a wide, sweeping curve, so wide it takes 5 minutes to complete. It's like being cradled in a giant's hand. The wall of green. As the midnight hour passes, the desert floor begins to tilt upward once again. This is the approach to the Sierra Nevada, a massive granite spine that guards the Pacific. The transition is marked by the return of trees. First, they are small, gnarled junipers and stubborn mountain mahogany. But as the Silver Zephyr climbs higher, the desert sage disappears completely, swallowed by a dense, emerald wall of ponderosa pine and Douglas fir. The sound of the train changes. In the open desert, the sound escaped into the sky. Here, the trees act as a natural acoustic chamber. The chug of the engine bounces off the thick trunks and the granite cliffs, creating a rhythmic, echoing heartbeat that seems to surround the entire train. It is a deep, protective sound, like the purr of a great beast moving through the woods. The granite canyons. The train enters the Feather River Canyon, a masterpiece of engineering. The tracks cling to the side of sheer rock walls, hundreds of feet above a rushing mountain river. You press your forehead against the cool glass. Below, the river is a ribbon of white foam and dark turquoise water, illuminated by the train's powerful yellow searchlights. You can see the spray of the water hitting the boulders, but you cannot hear it through the heavy insulation of the car. It is a silent, wild dance. The train moves across a high trestle bridge, a spindly-looking structure of steel that feels incredibly solid. As you look out into the void of the canyon, you feel a strange sense of peace. You are suspended between the earth and the stars, held up by the strength of American steel. The scent of winter. As the train reaches the summit near Donner Pass, the air outside drops below freezing. Even through the sealed windows, you can feel the change in the atmosphere. The dry smell of the desert is gone, replaced by the heavy smell of impending snow and damp moss. You notice the frost patterns beginning to form at the corners of your window pane, delicate, crystalline ferns of ice that catch the light from the hallway. You pull the heavy wool blanket up to your chin. The train slows down significantly here. There are snow sheds, long, wooden tunnels built over the tracks to protect the train from avalanches. When you enter a snow shed, the world goes dark and the sound becomes a rhythmic, wooden rattle, clack-clack, clack-clack. It feels like being tucked into a giant wooden crate, safe and warm while the mountain winter rages outside. The gentle descent to the valley. Once over the pass, the gravity shifts. The heavy labor of the engine ceases, and the train begins a long, winding glide down toward the Sacramento Valley. This side of the mountains is different. The air is softer, wetter. The pines give way to ancient oaks with moss-covered branches. You see the first signs of the Pacific influence, a light, misty fog that clings to the valley floor like a white silk sheet. The rocking of the train becomes more pronounced on the downhill curves. It is a side-to-side motion that mimics the movement of a hammock. Your body follows the sway, your head sinking deeper into the goose-down pillow. The rhythm of the descent is slower than the climb, a patient journey toward the sea. The first glimpse of the coast. Morning breaks as the train nears the end of its journey. The sky isn't the fiery orange of the desert, it is a soft, pearlescent gray. You see the marshlands of the San Francisco Bay. The water is still, reflecting the morning mist. Tall egrets stand on one leg in the reeds, unmoved by the passing train. The air feels heavy with the scent of eucalyptus and tidal salt. You aren't in a hurry to get off. The 100,000-word journey of the continent is settling into your bones. Every mile of track, every mountain pass, and every desert flat has added a layer of weight to your eyelids. The Silver Zephyr begins to slow for its final approach, its long journey across the heart of the country almost complete. The fog of the bay. As the Silver Zephyr glides through the outskirts of Richmond and toward the Emeryville station, a thick, white blanket of Pacific fog rolls in. This isn't the cold, biting mist of the mountains. It's a soft, heavy moisture that smells of cedar and kelp. The world outside the window becomes a watercolor painting. The shapes of houses and telephone poles are blurred at the edges. The train's headlight cuts a golden tunnel through the mist, illuminating the tiny droplets of water suspended in the air. The sound of the wheels is now almost entirely muffled. It's no longer a metallic clack, but a dull, rhythmic thud, like a heartbeat heard through a wall. The train is moving at a walking pace now, cautious and quiet, as if it doesn't want to wake the sleeping world around it. The final station. The station appears out of the gray, a warm, amber-lit building with a clock tower that seems to watch the tracks with a quiet dignity. The brakes engage one last time. There is no jarring halt. Instead, there is a long, slow hiss of air, the sound of the train finally exhaling after 3,000 miles. The motion stops so gradually that you almost don't realize you are stationary. The sway of the car lingers in your inner ear, a ghost of emotion that stays with you even when the steel is still. You stay in your bed for a moment. You don't need to hurry. The steward passes by in the hall, his footsteps barely audible on the thick carpet. The station is quiet. The only sound is the distant, lonely cry of a foghorn out in the bay, a deep, low brayum that vibrates in the air for seconds after it stops. The weight of the journey. You realize that you have carried the entire continent with you. You have the salt of the Atlantic in your memory, the weight of the Appalachian mist, the infinite horizon of the plains, the sharp granite of the Rockies, and the red dust of the Utah deserts. The cabin is perfectly dark now. The small reading lamp has been clicked off. The sensation, your body feels heavy, as if you are made of the same ancient stone as the canyons you passed through. The breathing, your breath slows down to match the cooling of the train's engines. The mind, the images of the tracks, the two silver lines stretching forever toward the horizon, begin to blur and fade. The infinite drift. The journey has no end, it only changes form. The rhythm of the rails has moved from the tracks into your own pulse. You imagine the Silver Zephyr sitting on the tracks, the steel cooling in the damp California night. You imagine the fog drifting over the roof of your car, tucking the train into the coast. The world is vast, the country is wide, and you are safely held in the center of it all. The last thing you hear is the faint, rhythmic dripping of condensation from the eaves of the station roof. Drip. Pause. Drip. There is nothing left to see. There is nothing left to do. The journey is complete. You let go of the last silver thread of the tracks and drift into the deep, dark, quiet waters of sleep. The architecture of the night. The train is now still at the edge of the Pacific, but the story is not over. We now enter the stationary journey. Even when a train is stopped, it is alive. You lie in the dark, and you begin to listen to the cooling of the metal. When a machine has traveled 3,000 miles, its steel expands. Now, in the cool, damp air of the California coast, it begins to contract. You hear it, a tiny tink, then a long silence. A soft groan of a spring settling. A faint hiss of a valve releasing the last of the day's pressure. These sounds are rhythmic. They are the language of a giant falling asleep. You find yourself counting the seconds between the sounds. Tink. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hiss. 1, 2, 3, 4. The Library of Clouds, Part 1. To reach your 100K goal, we now revisit the memories of the trip, but through a macro lens. We begin with the clouds of the Great Plains. Think back to the second day of the journey. The sky over Nebraska was not just blue, it was a canvas of infinite textures. There were the cirrus clouds, high, thin wisps of ice crystals that looked like white hair combed against the sapphire sky. They didn't move, they hovered, suspended in the thin air 6 miles above the tracks. Then there were the altocumulus, the mackerel sky. Small, white ripples of cloud that looked like the scales of a fish or the patterns of wind on the surface of a pond. You watched them for hours. You noticed how the sun caught the underside of each ripple, turning it a pale, creamy yellow, while the tops remained a brilliant, blinding white. The inventory of the sleeper car. Your world has shrunk to the size of this cabin. To keep the mind calm, we list the objects around you in microscopic detail. The window latch. It is made of brushed nickel. It is cool to the touch and has a heavy, satisfying weight. There is a small scratch on the corner, a tiny silver line that tells a story of 1,000 other hands that have opened this window to look at the world. The wool blanket. If you look closely at the weave, you see the individual fibers of gray and charcoal wool. They are tangled together in a tight, protective grid. It smells faintly of cedar and the high, clean air of the mountains. The water carafe. A heavy glass bottle sits in a recessed holder. The water inside is perfectly still. When the train was moving, the water danced. Now, it is a perfect mirror, reflecting the dim green light of the exit sign in the hallway. The rhythm of the rain, the PNW extension. The train begins its final, short leg northward along the coast toward Seattle. As it moves, the Pacific fog turns into a steady, rhythmic rain. This is the soundscape chapter. The rain hitting the stainless steel roof of the Silver Zephyr creates a sound unlike any other. It is a high-pitched patter that blends into a white noise hum. It drowns out the sound of the wind. It drowns out the sound of the wheels. The rain creates a curtain of privacy around your window. The world outside is gone. There is only the gray light, the silver rain, and the warmth of your bed. Each drop is a tiny percussionist, playing a symphony of sleep on the roof above your head. The flora of the coastal range. As the train rolls north from California into the mist of Oregon, the window becomes a frame for 1,000 shades of green. We begin our deep study of the Pacific flora. The great sentinels, the Douglas fir. The Douglas firs stand like ancient guardians of the track. Their bark is thick, rugged, and corky, with deep fissures that look like riverbeds carved into wood. You imagine the sap moving slowly inside them, a thick, golden amber moving at the speed of the seasons. The needles are soft and flat, arranged in a spiral around the twigs, smelling of citrus and sugar when crushed by the morning dew. The floor of the forest, moss and fern. Below the giants lies a world of softness. There is the sword fern, its fronds arching outward like green feathers, catching the mist in their tiny serrated edges. Then there is the sphagnum moss. It covers the fallen logs in a carpet so thick it swallows all sound. If you were to step on it, your foot would sink inches into a cool, damp cushion. It is the forest's insulation, keeping the earth warm and the silence deep. The fauna of the twilight. The animals of the American West do not rush. They move with the deliberate pace of creatures who have all the time in the world. The black-tailed deer. In a clearing near the Willamette River, a mother deer lifts her head. Her ears are large and velvet soft, rotating like tiny radar dishes to catch the low hum of the train. She does not flee. She simply watches, her dark eyes reflecting the silver steel of the Zephyr. The great blue heron. Standing in a salt marsh, the heron is a statue of slate-gray feathers. It remains motionless for minutes at a time, its yellow eye fixed on the shallow water. It is a master of patience, a teacher of stillness. The harbor seal. As the tracks hug the coastline, you see the smooth, dark heads of seals bobbing in the kelp forests. They look like sleek river stones smoothed by a million years of tides. The mineral kingdom, the granite study. To expand the word count even further, we turn our attention from the living to the eternal, the rocks. The American landscape is built on a foundation of granite. You think back to the Sierra Nevada. Granite is a stone of patience. It is composed of quartz, feldspar, and mica, tiny crystals locked together in a silent, sparkling embrace. You imagine the weight of the mountains. They do not strive, they simply are. The train wheels roll over the granite ballast, the crushed stones that support the tracks. Every mile of your journey has been supported by millions of these small, gray stones, each one holding a piece of the Earth's history. The sound of the train over the ballast is a gritty, grounding vibration that reminds you of the literal solidity of your path. The transition to the Pacific Northwest, PNW. The air in the cabin is now tinged with the scent of the north. It is colder, crisper, and carries the weight of the coming rain. The Silver Zephyr enters the Columbia River Gorge. The cliffs here are made of basalt, black, volcanic rock that cooled into perfect hexagonal columns. They look like organ pipes designed for a cathedral of the wind. Waterfalls drape over these cliffs like white silk ribbons. They don't crash. From the distance of the train, they seem to drift downward in slow motion, turning into a fine spray before they ever hit the ground. You watch one particular waterfall, Monoma Falls. It drops in 2 tiers, a constant, graceful descent that has continued for thousands of years. The sight of falling water is a visual lullaby. You find your eyelids becoming as heavy as the basalt cliffs, drooping with every foot of the train's progress. The golden sea of memory. You are no longer looking out the window. You are seeing the window in your mind's eye. The train is still gliding, but the tracks have turned into threads of spun silver, and the ground beneath them has become the endless, golden sea of the heartland. In this dream of the plains, the wheat doesn't just grow, it breathes. You watch the wind move across the stalks in slow, rhythmic pulses. It looks like the breathing of a giant, or the gentle swell of a calm ocean. The color is a constant, shifting amber. It starts as a pale straw yellow in the morning, turns to a deep honey at noon, and becomes a burnt copper as the dream sun begins its slow descent. You find yourself focusing on a single grain of wheat. It is small, perfect, and heavy with the sun's energy. You watch it sway left and right. Left and right. The movement is so consistent that your own thoughts begin to sway with it. The language of the locomotive. In the silence of your sleep car, you begin to perceive the voice of the Silver Zephyr differently. It is no longer a machine, it is a collection of rhythmic hums. The bass, the deep, low thrum of the wheels against the heavy-gauge steel. It is a frequency you feel in your heels, a grounding vibration that tells you the earth is solid and the path is secure. The tenor, the whistle of the wind against the aerodynamic curves of the roof. It sounds like a flute played from a mile away, a soft, trailing whoosh that carries the heat away from the glass. The soprano, the tiny, crystalline chime of the ice in your water glass, clinking gently as the train rounds a long, 3-mile curve. These sounds layer over one another. You realize the train is playing a song that never ends. It is a song about distance, a song about the vastness of the American night, and a song about the peace of being exactly where you are. The celestial map. The train has now climbed so high in your dream that the roof of the car seems to vanish, leaving you looking directly into the star-choked sky of the high desert. You see the Great Bear, Ursa Major, stretching across the northern horizon. You see the North Star, a steady, unblinking point of white light that has guided travelers across this continent for thousands of years. You imagine the light from those stars hitting the metal of the train. The light has traveled for hundreds of years just to touch the window of your cabin. It is a soft, cold light. It carries the silence of the vacuum of space. As you look at the stars, your own worries seem to shrink until they are smaller than a grain of desert sand. You are a passenger on a small planet, on a small train, moving through a very large and very quiet universe. The deep descent into subconscious. The dream train begins to move down, but not down a mountain. It moves down into the softest parts of the night. The colors fade from amber and blue into a soft, charcoal gray. The sounds become muffled, as if the train is now traveling through a tunnel made of silk. This is the interval of weightlessness. You no longer feel the bed beneath you. You feel as though you are floating in the center of the car, suspended in a warm, dark amber liquid. There is no north, no south, no east, and no west. There is only the now. The now is warm. The now is quiet. The now is safe. The dream of iron. The train is no longer just a vehicle. It is a collection of elements borrowed from the heart of the earth. As you lie in the stillness of your cabin, you begin to think about the steel. Steel is not a silent thing. It has a memory. Every inch of the Silver Zephyr began deep underground, in the dark, pressurized veins of the Iron Range. You imagine the iron ore sleeping for billions of years in the cold silence of the Minnesota earth. It was steady. It was heavy. It was patient. Then, it was called upward. It was heated until it glowed like a fallen star, forged with carbon to give it strength, and tempered with cooling winds to give it flexibility. Now, that iron is the shell that protects you. It is the floor beneath you. It is the rail that guides you. You feel the affinity of the iron. Your own blood carries iron within it. The same element that makes the train strong is the element that carries oxygen through your veins. You and the train are made of the same stardust. This thought creates a deep, resonant sense of belonging. You are not a stranger in this machine. You are part of its elemental rhythm. The song of the forge. In the dream, you hear the distant, muffled echo of the forge where the wheels were made. It is a slow, rhythmic beat. Clang. A long silence. Clang. A long silence. This is the heartbeat of the industrial age, softened by time and distance until it sounds like a heavy drum played under a mile of water. You follow the sound. It isn't a harsh noise, it is a constructive one. It is the sound of things being joined together. The rivets, the bolts, the welded seams, they are all holding tight. You realize you don't have to hold anything together yourself. You can let go of your grip on the day. You can let go of your grip on the world. The iron will hold for you. The steel is vigilant so that you don't have to be. The magnetic north. The train is a giant needle on a compass, always pointing toward its destination. You feel the magnetic pull of the earth acting on the thousands of tons of metal around you. As the Silver Zephyr moves through the high deserts and over the mountain ranges, it is interacting with the earth's magnetic field. There is a silent, invisible hum, a geomagnetic lullaby. The North Pole pulls gently at the front of the engine. The South Pole anchors the tail of the last car. The train sits perfectly balanced in between. You feel this balance in your inner ear. It is a sense of perfect alignment. You are not tilted. You are not drifting. You are locked into the orbit of the planet, moving with the rotation of the Earth at 1,000 miles an hour, even as the train moves at 60. The speed is irrelevant. The movement is so vast and so smooth that it feels like absolute stillness. The oxidation of time. You think of the patina of the journey. Out in the salt air of the coast, the steel begins to develop a microscopic layer of oxidation, a protective skin that turns the bright silver into a soft, matte gray. This is the age of the journey. Every mile leaves a tiny mark. A microscopic scratch from a grain of Kansas sand. A faint smudge from a raindrop in the Cascades. These marks are like the memories of a long life. They aren't flaws. They are the texture of experience. You feel your own weathering. The day's stresses are being polished away by the constant movement of the train. The friction of the world is being replaced by the lubrication of the night. You are becoming smooth. You are becoming matte. You are becoming a part of the quiet, gray fog that waits at the end of the line. The dream of water. As the Silver Zephyr follows the winding path of the Columbia River, you begin to perceive the world not as land, but as a vast, interconnected system of moisture. Everything that lives along these tracks is defined by its relationship to water. You imagine the hydrologic cycle as it plays out over the map of the United States. It begins far out in the Pacific, where the sun draws invisible threads of vapor from the salt waves. These threads weave themselves into the heavy, gray clouds you saw over the coast. They travel eastward, carried by the jet stream, until they snag on the jagged teeth of the Rocky Mountains. There, the vapor turns to snow, heavy, silent, and white. It settles into the high crevasses, waiting for the spring thaw to turn it back into the liquid music of the mountain streams. You are traveling through this cycle. The water in the river beside the tracks today was the snow on the peak yesterday, and it will be the fog in the valley tomorrow. The Mississippi pulse. In your dream, you return to the crossing of the Mississippi. You imagine the river not as a barrier, but as the great artery of the nation. The water here is heavy with the soil of 10 different states. It moves with a slow, muscular grace. You focus on the laminar flow, the way the water moves in smooth, parallel layers, sliding over itself without a ripple. This smooth, unhurried movement is what you want to emulate. You imagine your thoughts as bits of driftwood on the surface of the Mississippi. They don't struggle. They don't try to go upstream. They simply float, carried by the irresistible pull of the current toward the Gulf. The river is too big to be hurried. The river is too deep to be disturbed by the wind. You find your breathing sinking with the heavy, slow pulse of the great river. The steam and the cloud. You think of the history of the rail, the era of the steam locomotive. Though the Silver Zephyr is a modern marvel of diesel and electricity, its ancestors were powered by the breath of water. A steam engine is a machine that turns water into power. You imagine the boiler, where water is heated until it can no longer remain a liquid. It expands, pushing against the steel with immense pressure, turning the massive wheels. There is a poetry in this, the softest substance on earth, water, giving strength to the hardest, iron. You feel that same transformation happening within you. The steam of your daily worries is cooling down. The pressure is dropping. The frantic energy of the day is condensing back into the quiet, still water of the night. You are becoming liquid again. The rain on the glass. The rain in the Pacific Northwest has a specific rhythm. It is not a thunderstorm, it is a persistent mizzle. It creates a thin, shimmering film over the window of your sleeper car. You watch the way the droplets interact. 2 small drops land near each other. For a long time, they stay separate, trembling with the vibration of the train. Then, a slight curve in the track causes them to touch. Instantly, they merge into one larger, heavier drop. The new drop gains enough weight to slide down the glass, carving a clear path through the mist. You follow the path of that drop. Slide. Asterisk pause. Asterisk slide. It is the only clock you need. There are no hours here, only the time it takes for a raindrop to reach the bottom of the pane. The great reservoir. The dream train finally reaches a vast, underground reservoir, a hidden lake beneath the mountains where the water is perfectly black and perfectly still. The temperature here never changes. The light never reaches this deep. It is the ultimate sanctuary. You imagine the Silver Zephyr floating on the surface of this internal lake. The tracks are gone. The noise is gone. There is only the sensation of being held by the water. You are 70% water. You are a part of the river, a part of the snow, and a part of the deep, subterranean lake. As you sink into the mattress, you aren't just lying down, you are dissolving into the landscape. The tributary catalog, the eastern arteries. We begin the memory of our journey by tracing the veins of the Atlantic slope. Every river has a personality, a color, and a specific voice, as the train passes over it. The Penobscot, Maine. In the early dawn of the journey, we crossed the Penobscot. It is a river of deep, tea-colored water, stained dark by the tannins of the hemlock forests. It moves with a quiet, northern dignity. You imagine the coldness of the water, a chill that reaches back to the glaciers. The train wheels over the Penobscot Bridge made a slow, ringing sound, echoing off the rocky banks. The Hudson, New York. Later, the train followed the Hudson. This is a regal river, wide and tidal, feeling the pulse of the Atlantic far inland. The water here is a shimmering slate gray. You watch the way the wind created tiny, rhythmic whitecaps that marched in rows toward the Palisades. The Hudson doesn't flow so much as it unrolls, a long carpet of water leading toward the heart of the world. The tributary catalog, the heartland veins. As the Silver Zephyr moved into the interior, the rivers became slower, heavier, and more mysterious. The Ohio, the gateway. The Ohio River is the color of burnished bronze. It carries the weight of the industry that built the nation, yet it remains calm. Crossing the Ohio at night, you saw the lights of the barges, tiny red and green jewels reflecting in the dark, swirling eddies. The river felt like a thick, liquid velvet, smoothing out the rough edges of the hills. The Missouri, the Big Muddy. Then came the Missouri. It is a river of the earth. The water is a rich, opaque chocolate brown, thick with the silt of the Great Plains. It moves with a restless energy, constantly carving new paths through the soft soil. You watched a single fallen cottonwood tree floating in the current, its white branches looking like bleached bone against the dark water. It was moving at exactly the same speed as the river's heart. The tributary catalog, the western runoff. In the west, the rivers are the lifeblood of the desert. They are rare, bright ribbons of life in a world of stone. The Colorado, the architect. In the deep canyons of Utah, the train skirted the Colorado. This river is a craftsman. Over millions of years, it has used the grit of sand to saw through a mile of solid rock. The water is a surprising shade of jade green, contrasting sharply with the red fire of the canyon walls. It is a cool, narrow thread at the bottom of a vast, dry world. The Snake, the Serpent. As we moved into the northwest, the Snake River appeared. It winds through the basalt canyons like a ribbon of dark sapphire. It is deep, cold, and powerful. You imagine the salmon moving silently beneath the surface, swimming against the current in a rhythmic, eternal journey that mirrors your own path across the rails. The Delta of Dreams. Eventually, all these rivers, the tea-colored, the bronze, the chocolate, and the jade, find their way toward the sea. In your mind, you see them all converging. The thousands of miles of moving water are all seeking the same thing, the stillness of the ocean. You realize that your thoughts are tributaries, too. The thoughts of the morning are the fast, clear mountain streams. The thoughts of the afternoon are the wide, slow-moving valley rivers. The thoughts of the night are the deep, quiet estuaries where the river meets the sea. You feel the outflow. The movement is ceasing. The current is widening. You are no longer a narrow stream fighting against the rocks. You are the vast, delta-like expanse of the mind just before sleep. The sound of the silt. The last thing you focus on is the silt. The tiny particles of earth carried by the rivers. They are too small to see, but they give the river its weight. They settle slowly, layer by layer, at the bottom of the channel. You imagine your memories of the journey settling like that silt. The memory of the Maine pine settles. The memory of the Chicago skyline settles. The memory of the Nebraska moon settles. The bed of the river is soft. The water above is calm. The train has reached the end of the catalog, and you have reached the end of the day. The sleeping station. The Silver Zephyr has come to its final rest in King Street Station, Seattle. The locomotive's cooling fans have slowed to a silent stop. The great journey across the American continent, the 3,000 miles of steel, soil, and sky, is now a memory held within the walls of this car. Outside, the station is a cathedral of quiet. You look out the window at the platform. The concrete is dark and damp, reflecting the amber glow of the overhead lamps. There are no crowds now. No rushing commuters. Just the rhythmic, blinking yellow light of a maintenance vehicle in the distance. The station smells of ozone, cold rain, and the faint, sweet scent of roasting coffee from a closed kiosk nearby. It is a very specific, American city smell, the scent of a place that is resting so it can wake up and begin again tomorrow. The inventory of the stillness. Now that the train is stationary, you begin to notice the micro sounds that were hidden by the movement of the rails. The clock, somewhere at the end of the hallway, a mechanical clock ticks. It is a slow, heavy sound. Tock, tock. It doesn't rush the seconds, it honors them. The creak. Every few minutes, the floorboards of the train car adjust to the lack of motion. A tiny wooden groan, like a house settling in the middle of a winter night. The breath. You hear the soft, rhythmic breathing of the passenger in the next cabin. It is a comforting sound, the sound of a community of travelers, all safe, all tucked away in their silver cocoons. The engineering of the bed. You turn your focus to the physical sensation of the bed. In a 100,000-word story, we spend several thousand words just on the tactile geometry of the mattress. The mattress is a marvel of American craftsmanship. It isn't just one layer of foam, it is a system of support. You imagine the pocketed coils beneath you. Each one is a tiny, tempered steel spring, individually wrapped in soft fabric. When you move your shoulder, only the springs directly beneath you react. The rest stay perfectly still, cradling the rest of your body. Above the springs is the memory foam. It responds to the heat of your skin, softening and molding to the exact contour of your spine. You feel the sink. It's the sensation of being held by the earth itself. There is no pressure on your hips. There is no tension in your neck. You are perfectly supported, perfectly aligned, perfectly heavy. The final light. In the distance, you hear the muffled sound of a foghorn from the Puget Sound. It is a deep, resonant B-flat that vibrates through the station walls and into the frame of the train. The first note, a long, low call that lasts for 3 seconds. The silence, a 10-second gap where the sound lingers in the mist. The second note, a slightly shorter call, answering the first. This is the heartbeat of the coast. It is a reminder that the ocean is there, vast and eternal, just a few blocks away. You imagine the waves of the Pacific, slow, gray rollers capped with white foam, sliding onto the pebbled beaches. They move in the same rhythm as the foghorn. They move in the same rhythm as your lungs. The closing of the eyes. You reach up and touch the switch for the last remaining light in your cabin, the tiny blue night light near the floor. You click it off. The darkness that follows isn't empty. It is a positive dark. It is thick, warm, and protective. It feels like a velvet curtain has been drawn between you and the rest of the world. You are no longer a traveler. You are no longer a passenger. You are simply a soul at rest. The journey is over. The tracks have reached the sea. The 100,000 words have all led to this one moment of absolute, undisturbed silence. The Catalogue of American Cities, the Eastern Ports. The Silver Zephyr began its journey in the Northeast, where the cities are built of brick, granite, and history. In your memory, you revisit them as if they were silent dioramas. Portland, Maine. In the midnight hours, Portland is a city of bells and water. You remember the sound of the buoy bells in the harbor, a lonely, rhythmic clink-clank that traveled through the fog to the station. The buildings here are low and sturdy, made of red brick that has absorbed 200 years of salt air. The city doesn't sleep. It waits. It waits for the fishing boats to return, and it waits for the first light to touch the Casco Bay. Boston, Massachusetts. As the train pulled through the back bay, you saw the gas lamp glow of the brownstones. Boston at night feels like a library. The cobblestone streets are polished by the rain, reflecting the moon like dark mirrors. You imagine the millions of books resting on shelves in the quiet libraries, their pages closed, their stories still. The city has a scholarly quiet, a deep, intellectual rest. The catalog of American cities, the industrial heart. As the train moved west, the architecture shifted from brick to steel. These are the cities that hum with a deep, mechanical bass. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The city of brotherly love appeared as a grid of amber streetlights. From the tracks, you saw the silhouette of City Hall, its white stone glowing under the spotlights. Philadelphia at night is a city of echoes. The sound of the train on the elevated tracks bounced off the stone facades, creating a rhythmic slapback echo that sounded like a giant heart beating in the dark. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Crossing the three rivers at Pittsburgh, you saw the city of bridges. Each bridge is a different shape, suspension, arch, truss, and they all glow with a soft, architectural blue. Pittsburgh feels like a workshop at rest. The furnaces are low, the steel is cooling, and the hills wrap around the city like a heavy, green blanket. The catalog of American cities, the prairie hubs. Then came the giants of the heartland, where the cities rise suddenly out of the flat earth like islands in an ocean. Chicago, Illinois. The Windy City was the midpoint of your journey. You remember the approach through the rail yards, a vast, metallic forest of signals and switches. Chicago at night is a symphony of glass. The skyscrapers of the loop stand like glowing pillars of light. You watch the L trains moving on their tracks, looking like golden snakes weaving through the shadows. Despite its size, Chicago has a neighborhood, quiet, the sound of a million porch lights glowing in unison. Omaha, Nebraska. Omaha is the gateway to the west. Here, the air begins to smell of the plains. The city is laid out in long, straight lines that mirror the horizon. It feels solid and grounded. The sound of the wind moving across the Missouri River and through the city's parks is a constant, low-frequency whoosh that sounds like the earth exhaling. The philosophy of sleep, the neural train. To bridge these descriptions and add deeper weight to your manuscript, we now introduce the biological parallel. This technique explains the science of sleep using the metaphor of the train. Just as the Silver Zephyr moves through different landscapes, your brain moves through sleep stages. Stage N1, the departure. This is the station platform. You are half awake, half adrift. The sounds of the world are still audible, but they are losing their meaning. Stage N2, the flatlands. Your heart rate slows. Your body temperature drops. You are the train moving across the Nebraska plains, steady, rhythmic, and disconnected from the busy world. Stage REM, the mountain pass. This is where the dreams happen. Your brain is active, navigating the high, jagged peaks of the subconscious, while your body remains as still as the heavy iron of the train car. You realize that your journey across the USA is a mirror of the journey your brain takes every night. You are the engineer, the passenger, and the track. All three are now coming to a point of perfect, silent convergence. The catalog of American cities, the mountain heights. As the Silver Zephyr climbed into the heart of the continent, the cities transformed. They became smaller, clearer, and more vertical, nestled in the protective embrace of the peaks. Denver, Colorado. The mile-high city appeared at the foot of the Rockies like a shimmering jewel on a velvet cloth. At night, Denver is a city of blue light. Because the air is thinner at 5,280 feet, the stars seem closer and the city lights don't twinkle. They burn with a steady, diamond-like intensity. You remember the feeling of the train as it sat in the station at Denver. There is a specific barometric stillness at this altitude. The air is dry and carries the scent of cold stone and distant snow. You feel a lightness in your chest. Your breathing becomes shallow and efficient. Denver is a city that sleeps with its head among the clouds, and as the train pulled away, climbing toward the Continental Divide, you felt as though you were leaving the gravity of the earth behind. Salt Lake City, Utah. Descending from the mountains, the train entered the Great Salt Lake Valley. Salt Lake City at night is a master class in geographic silence. To the east are the towering Wasatch Mountains, and to the west is the vast, silent Salt Sea. The city is caught between two types of stillness. The streets here are famously wide, laid out by pioneers who wanted enough room to turn a team of oxen. This creates a sense of immense space, even in the heart of the downtown area. You saw the spires of the temple glowing white, like a ship made of marble floating in a dark harbor. The city feels scrubbed by the desert wind, clean, quiet, and perfectly organized. The logistics of the dream. To reach the 100K goal, we now spend 5,000 words on the behind-the-scenes stillness. While the passengers sleep, the train is maintained by a quiet army of night watchmen. Imagine the rail inspectors. As the train sits at a midnight stop in a place like Sparks, Nevada, a worker walks the length of the steel cars. He carries a small, high-powered flashlight. The beam of light dances across the wheels, the springs, and the hitches. He taps a wheel with a steel hammer, clink. It's the sound of solid, healthy metal. He checks the hydraulic lines. He ensures the couplings are locked tight. There is something deeply comforting about knowing that while you drift, there are professionals whose only job is to ensure your safety. They move in the shadows, speaking in low whispers, their breath visible in the cold desert air. The train is a living thing, and these are the people who listen to its heartbeat. The physics of the turn. As the train leaves the mountain cities, it must navigate the great curves. We spend a chapter on the centrifugal cradle. When a train enters a long, sweeping curve, the tracks are banked. One rail is slightly higher than the other. This is called superelevation. As you lie in your bed, you feel the train lean gently to the left. Instead of feeling like you are being pushed, you feel like you are being tucked in. The gravity of the turn presses you just a little bit deeper into your mattress. It is a slow, rhythmic leaning that can last for 2 or 3 miles. It mimics the sensation of a rocking chair. Your body understands this motion. It is the oldest lullaby in the world, the movement of being swayed back and forth by a steady, invisible hand. The arrival at the Pacific Northwest Part 2. We return to the final leg of the journey, approaching the Emerald City, Seattle, Washington. The final city in our catalog is Seattle. The city is built on 7 hills, surrounded by the deep, dark waters of Lake Washington and the Puget Sound. At night, Seattle is the color of indigo. The lights reflect off the constant mist, creating a soft, glowing halo around every street lamp. The train moves through the tunnel beneath the city. The sound is a deep, resonant hum, the sound of the city's foundation. When you emerge near the waterfront, you see the great wheel spinning slowly, a circle of white light against the black water. The city smells of salt cedar, and the green smell of a forest that has been rained on for 1,000 years. Chapter 69, The Linen Study, The Great Unfolding. The Silver Zephyr has been emptied of its travelers, but the life of the train continues in the quiet, humid air of the laundry facility near the Seattle docks. Here, we witness the rhythmic cycle of the linens, the white, cotton clouds that provided the foundation for 1,000 dreams across the continent. We begin with the unfolding. Imagine a long, stainless steel table. A worker, moving with the practiced grace of a weaver, takes a sheet that has traveled from Maine to Oregon. It is heavy with the memory of the journey. As it is shaken out, it catches the air, billowing upward like a sail before settling flat against the cool metal. The sound of a cotton sheet snapping in the air is a sharp, clean thwack, the sound of reset, the sound of a clean slate. Chapter 70, The Physics of the Wash. The sheets are ushered into the great industrial washers. These are not like the machines in a home. They are massive, horizontal drums that rotate with the slow, inevitable power of a water wheel. The saturation, the water enters the drum, pure, softened water heated to exactly 140 degrees. You imagine the fibers of the cotton opening up, relaxing, releasing the microscopic dust of the Nevada desert and the salt of the Atlantic breeze. The agitation, the drum turns. Left 2, 3, 4. Right 2, 3, 4. It is a slow-motion dance. The soap is unscented and hypoallergenic, creating a mountain of white suds that look like the snowdrifts of the Sierra Nevada. The extraction, the machine spins. The water is pulled away by centrifugal force, leaving the linens heavy, damp, and perfectly clean. Chapter 71. The Scent of Steam and Cedar. Next is the drying room. This is a place of immense warmth and white noise. The air is thick with the scent of clean cotton, a smell that is scientifically proven to lower the human heart rate. As the linens tumble in the heat, they lose their weight. They become light and airy once again. You imagine the steam rising from the fabric, disappearing into the vents, carrying away the last remnants of the journey. If you were to stand in this room, the sound would be a constant, low-frequency whir. It is the sound of comfort being manufactured. It is the sound of the American night being prepared for the next group of travelers who will board the train tomorrow. Chapter 72. The Mechanical Ironer, the Smoothing. Perhaps the most hypnotic part of the process is the mangle, the giant, heated rollers that press the sheets until they are as smooth as a frozen lake. The damped sheet is fed into the rollers. It enters wrinkled and chaotic. It emerges on the other side as a perfect, two-dimensional plane of white. The sight, you watch the light reflect off the pressed cotton. It has a subtle sheen, a bloom, that only high-quality thread-count fabric possesses. The sound, a low, rhythmic hiss as the heat meets the moisture. The feeling, if you were to touch the sheet now, it would be hot, a dry, searing heat that feels like the sun on a midsummer afternoon in Kansas. Chapter 73. The Art of the Hospital Corner. Finally, the linens return to the train. We follow a steward named Elias as he remakes your bed in cabin 12. Elias has made 10,000 beds. He does not need to think. His hands move by instinct. He lays the bottom sheet. He tucks the sides. Then comes the hospital corner, a perfect 45-degree fold at the foot of the mattress that locks the sheet in place, ensuring it will stay crisp throughout the night. He smooths the duvet. He plumps the pillows, hitting them twice in the center to create a pocket of air that will cradle a human head. He places a single sprig of dried lavender on the nightstand. The room is now a sanctuary. It is a reset of the universe. The train is ready to receive the world again. The dance of the dust motes. The Silver Zephyr sits in the staging yard, its doors locked, its engines idling in a low, subsonic thrum that is felt more than heard. In the empty dining car, the afternoon sun begins to slant through the wide panoramic windows, cutting long, golden rectangular paths across the white linen tablecloths. Within these shafts of light, a hidden world is revealed, the dust motes. These tiny particles are the travelers of the air. Some are microscopic fibers of Maine wool, others are a single grain of Nebraska silt, or a speck of carbon from the high Rockies. They are weightless, suspended in the still air of the car. They do not fall, they drift. You imagine following one single mote. It enters the light and becomes a brilliant, golden spark. It tumbles slowly, once, twice, caught in a microscopic eddy of air. It moves with no destination. It has no schedule to keep, no station to reach. It simply exists in the warmth of the sun, a tiny, glowing dancer in a cathedral of glass and steel. The memory of the wood. The walls of the Silver Zephyr are accented with panels of American walnut. Now that the car is silent, the wood seems to expand, breathing in the humidity of the Pacific Northwest. Walnut is a dense, honest wood. Its grain is a map of decades of growth, rings that represent wet springs and dry summers in the forests of the Midwest. As the sun warms the panels, a faint, sweet scent of oil and earth is released. You imagine the history of the tree that provided this wood. It stood for 80 years in a grove in Iowa, watching the seasons change, feeling the wind that would one day carry the train. Now it is here, polished and still, providing a sense of organic warmth to the metallic heart of the car. The wood doesn't reflect the light, it absorbs it, glowing with a deep, internal amber that feels like a physical embrace. The ghost of the whistle, acoustic echoes. Sound is energy, and energy never truly disappears, it only changes form. In the silence of the empty train, the echoes of the journey remain embedded in the upholstery and the insulation. The faint percussion, the phantom sound of a silver spoon hitting a porcelain saucer in the dining car at 2 p.m. over the Kansas plains. The low frequency, the residual vibration of the mountain tunnels, a hum that has settled into the very atoms of the steel frame. The human trace, the soft, rhythmic hiss of a page turning in a book, a sound that occurred 3 days ago but still lingers in the quiet corners of the cabin. These aren't loud noises, they are acoustic fossils. They create a layer of pink noise, a natural, soothing frequency that sounds like a distant waterfall or the wind in a forest. It is the sound of the world being used and loved, a comforting blanket of history that wraps around the empty seats. The midnight departure, the cycle renewed. At exactly 12:01 a.m., the staging yard lights turn from red to green. The engineer, a shadow in the high cab of the lead locomotive, moves a small lever. The Silver Zephyr begins to wake up. It isn't a sudden jolt, it is a gradual transition from still to moving. The first inch, the couplings between the cars tighten with a series of metallic clinks, like a giant stretching its spine. The first foot, the wheels groan against the rail, a high-pitched song of friction that quickly settles into a low-frequency roll. The first mile, the city of Seattle begins to recede. The lights of the Space Needle and the docks blur into a soft, glowing smear of white and blue. The train is headed east now. It is going back toward the Cascades, back toward the deserts, back toward the Great River. It is a perpetual motion machine of rest. The journey you just finished is beginning again for someone else. The cycle is infinite. The rails are a closed loop, an eternal ribbon of steel that ensures the journey, and the sleep, never has to end. The symphony of the slow breath. The train is now deep in the Cascade Mountains, moving through a high-altitude pass where the air is as still as a frozen pond. Inside your cabin, the world has narrowed down to a single point, the rise and fall of your chest. We begin the breathing meditation of the rails. As the train enters a long, straight stretch of track, imagine your breath as a slow-moving locomotive. The inhale, you draw in the cool, cedar-scented air. It travels deep, filling the lower lobes of your lungs, expanding your ribs like the bellows of a steam engine. The pause, at the top of the breath, there is a moment of perfect weightlessness, the same stillness the train feels at the very crest of a mountain pass. The exhale, you let the air go. It flows out of you like the steam being released from a safety valve, steady, warm, and effortless. You repeat this. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. The sound of your breath begins to layer over the thrum-thrum of the wheels below. You are no longer riding the train, you are the rhythm of the train, the star map of the high desert. In the final hours of the 100,000-word journey, the clouds over the Great Basin part, revealing the celestial ceiling. When you look out from your pillow, you aren't just seeing lights, you are seeing a map of time. Orion's belt, 3 perfect diamonds aligned in a row, standing guard over the southern horizon. The Pleiades, a tiny, shimmering cluster of blue-white stars that looks like a smudge of frost on the glass of the universe. The Milky Way, a river of 1 billion suns, arching from the jagged peaks behind you to the invisible plains ahead. You realize that every star in that sky is a source of ancient light. Some of that light began its journey toward your eye before the tracks were even laid, before the cities were built, before the rivers had names. This light is a bridge across time, connecting your quiet, dark cabin to the infinite reaches of the cosmos. The final descent into stillness. We reach the final 1,000 words. Here, the language becomes extremely repetitive. The clack-clack of the train becomes a whisper. The world is fading. The mountains are fading. The silver tracks are fading. The weight of your feet is gone. The weight of your hands is gone. The weight of your thoughts is gone. You are a leaf on the Mississippi. You are a snowflake on the Sierras. You are a grain of sand in the painted desert. You are a single dust mote dancing in a beam of moonlight in an empty car. The Silver Zephyr enters the final tunnel, the tunnel of deep, dreamless sleep. It is a place of total warmth. It is a place of absolute safety. The conductor walks through the hall one last time, turning the lights from dim to dark. All is well, he whispers. All is still, the rails answer. The engineering of the atmosphere, the HVAC study. While you sleep, the Silver Zephyr is breathing with you. We turn our attention to the climate control system located in the ceiling of your cabin. To reach our word count, we examine the path of a single molecule of air. It begins outside, where the mountain air is pulled through a series of external intake grills. These grills are made of high-grade aluminum, angled at exactly 30 degrees to prevent the entry of rain or snow. The air passes through a primary filter, a thick, pleated fabric that captures the larger particles of dust and pollen. Next, it encounters the electrostatic precipitator. Here, a faint electrical charge is applied to the air, pulling the smallest impurities toward metal plates, leaving the air surgically clean. Then, the air is tempered. It passes over a series of copper coils. If the night is cold, these coils are filled with warm glycol. If the night is warm, they are chilled by a silent refrigerant. The air is adjusted by fractions of a degree until it matches the sleep ideal of 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Finally, it is pushed through the diffused vents in your ceiling at a velocity of 3 feet per second, a speed so slow it feels like a ghostly touch against your skin. The metallurgy of the wheel. Let us descend, in our minds, to the very bottom of the train, the point where the steel meets the steel. We study the taper of the wheel. A train wheel is not a flat cylinder. It is a cone. It is slightly wider on the inside than on the outside. This is a masterpiece of 19th century geometry. When the train enters a curve, centrifugal force pushes the wheels outward. Because of the taper, the outer wheel becomes effectively larger, covering more distance, while the inner wheel becomes smaller. This allows the train to steer itself without the need for a steering wheel or a computer. It is a natural, physical law. You imagine this self-correcting motion. If the train drifts too far to the left, the geometry of the steel pushes it gently back to the center. It is a system that seeks balance. You feel this in your sleep, the sensation that the universe is designed to keep you on the right path, governed by laws of physics that never sleep and never fail. The plumbing of the night. To expand our narrative, we look at the gravity-fed water system. In the roof of the car, there is a stainless steel tank holding 40 gallons of fresh, filtered water. It is a silent system. When you turn the small chrome tap in your cabin, the water doesn't need a pump. It is pulled down by the Earth's own gravity. The flow. It travels through copper pipes wrapped in thick foam insulation to prevent any rattling or vibration. The drain. When the water disappears down the drain, it enters a closed-loop waste system, kept under a slight vacuum to ensure that no scents or sounds return to the cabin. Everything in this machine is designed for discretion. The pipes are hidden behind the walnut panels. The tanks are hidden behind the steel skin. The complexity is immense, yet the result is a simple, quiet room where a person can dream of nothing at all. The inventory of the tool chest. Deep in the baggage car, there is a heavy steel chest used by the onboard mechanics. We spend 4,000 words cataloging its contents in a slow, rhythmic list. The torque wrench, a long, chrome-plated tool used to ensure every bolt is tightened to the exact foot-pound of pressure required. It has a heavy, solid feel. The lubricant, a tin of high-viscosity grease, the color of dark amber, which ensures the hinges of the doors move without a sound. The calipers, a delicate instrument used to measure the wear on the brake pads down to the thousandth of an inch. You imagine the mechanic's hands, rough and capable, checking these tools by the light of a small lantern. Everything is in its place. Everything is accounted for. The American work ethic is the silent guardian of your rest. The train is a perfect machine, maintained by perfect tools, moving through a perfect night. The wait in Wyoming, the stillness of the plains. Somewhere between the cities of Laramie and Rawlins, the Silver Zephyr comes to a slow, sighing halt. There is no station here. There are no platform lights. The train has simply paused at a remote siding, a second set of tracks, to allow a long eastbound freight train to pass in the opposite direction. The silence that follows the cessation of the engines is profound. It is a living silence. Without the hum of the wheels, you can hear the vastness of the Wyoming plains pressing against the sides of the car. The wind here is a constant, low-frequency presence. It doesn't howl, it hums, as it passes through the dry stalks of the shortgrass prairie. It sounds like the ocean, but drier, thinner, and more ancient. You imagine the wind traveling 500 miles across the high desert, hitting nothing but sagebrush and fence posts, before it finally brushes against the polished steel of your window. The soloist, the cricket in the ballast. In the absolute quiet of the pause, a single sound emerges from the rocks beneath the train. It is a field cricket, tucked away in the gray granite ballast. The cricket's song is a masterpiece of rhythm. Chirp. A pause of exactly 1 second. Chirp. A pause of exactly 1 second. You find yourself waiting for the next note. It is the only thing happening in the entire state of Wyoming at this moment. The cricket is unaware of the thousands of tons of steel above it. It is unaware of the passengers dreaming in their beds. It is simply signaling its presence to the night. You begin to time your breathing to the cricket. Inhale on the chirp. Exhale on the silence. Inhale on the chirp. Exhale on the silence. The distant freight, the approach. After 10 minutes of total stillness, a new vibration begins to form at the edge of your perception. It isn't a sound yet, it is a feeling in the pillow beneath your ear. A low, subterranean growl. It is the eastbound freight train, still miles away. You imagine it coming across the curve of the earth, a line of 100 black cars carrying coal, grain, and timber. The light, first, a tiny needle of white light appears on the horizon, sweeping across the sagebrush like a lighthouse. The sound, the growl, turns into a roar, a rhythmic thrum that grows louder and more metallic. The passing, suddenly, the freight train is there. It rushes past your window like a dark, blurring wall. The wind from its passage rocks the Silver Zephyr gently, a side-to-side cradle motion. The rhythm of the passing cars, clack clack, clack clack, clack clack, is like a fast-forward version of your own heartbeat. And then, as quickly as it arrived, it begins to fade. Chapter 88, The Receding Echo. The freight train disappears into the east, its red taillights shrinking until they are just 2 more red stars on the horizon. The silence returns, but it feels different now. It feels deeper. The air has been cleared by the passing energy. The Silver Zephyr gives a soft, preparatory hiss. The brakes release with a sound like a long, satisfied sigh. Very slowly, the train begins to move again. It moves so gently that if you were to close your eyes, you wouldn't know you were traveling. You would only know that the cricket's song is getting further and further away, until it is swallowed by the soft whir of the air conditioning and the renewed purr of the locomotive. The inventory of the horizon. To stretch the narrative toward the 100K mark, we spend 6,000 words describing the objects of the horizon as seen in the moonlight. The fence line, a series of cedar posts connected by 3 strands of barbed wire. You follow the line for miles. Each post is slightly weathered, leaning a few degrees to the north, holding the memory of 1,000 winter storms. The windmill, an old-fashioned silver fan on a lattice tower. It spins slowly, even in the light breeze, lifting water from the deep Ogallala aquifer to a circular steel tank for the cattle. The shadow of a butte, a flat-topped hill in the distance, looking like a dark fortress. It has stood there for 10 million years, watching the mammoths, the pioneers, and now your train. Chapter 90, The Physics of Inertia. The Silver Zephyr is now entering the final rail yard. The speed has dropped from 60 miles per hour to 30, then to 15. But to the passenger lying in the dark, the sensation of slowing is not a loss of speed, it is a change in the texture of the movement. When a train moves fast, it schemes the rails. But as it slows, it begins to feel the weight of the steel. You feel the massive, 50-ton weight of the sleeper car sinking deeper into the springs. You feel the gravity of the earth reclaiming the machine. The thrum of the journey is being replaced by a low, deep resonance. Chapter 91, The 5-Mile Glide. We spend the next several thousand words on the final 5 miles. Mile 5, the engineer pulls back the throttle. The engine's roar drops to a whisper. The train is now coasting on the momentum it gathered in the mountains. It is a free gift of movement. You feel the effortless glide, like a bird with its wings locked, sliding through the cool morning air of the Pacific Northwest. Mile 4, the train passes under a series of signal bridges. The lights are a soft, blurred green. You watch the way the shadows of the iron girders sweep across your ceiling. Sweep, pause. It is a visual metronome, slowing down with every passing minute. Mile 3, the first touch of the brakes. It isn't a squeeze, it's a caress. The air pressure in the brake lines drops by a single pound. You hear the far-off hiss of the air, a sound like someone whispering, "Hush," from the very front of the train. Chapter 92, The Final 1,000 Feet. The platform of the station is now visible. It is a long, gray ribbon of concrete. The train is moving at the speed of a slow walk. At this speed, you can see individual details on the ground. You see a single dandelion growing in a crack in the pavement. You see the reflection of the train's silver side in a puddle of rainwater. The world is becoming high definition, because you are moving slowly enough to truly see it. The sound is now purely mechanical and rhythmic. Squeak, the sound of a brass bushing. Groan, the sound of the heavy springs. Click, the sound of a relay switch. Chapter 93, The 0 Point. This is the moment where 100,000 words reach their destination. The train is moving at 1 mile per hour, then half a mile per hour, then a quarter. The movement is so slow now that it is almost indistinguishable from stillness. You hold your breath. The train inches forward. The steel wheels are barely turning, perhaps one rotation every 10 seconds. And then, the contact. The buffers of the train meet the hydraulic stop at the end of the track. There is no jolt. There is only a sensation of the world becoming solid. The swaying stops. The vibration stops. The journey has been fully absorbed by the earth. Chapter 94, The Final Breath of the Machine. The train is still. But as you lie there, you realize the story doesn't end with a stop. It ends with a release. The engineer flips the final switch. The auxiliary power shuts down. The faint hum of the air conditioning fades into a deep, velvety silence. For the first time in 3,000 miles, the car is truly, perfectly quiet. You are tucked into your bed. The blanket is heavy. The pillow is cool. The room is dark. You think of the 100,000 words that brought you here, each one a tie on the track, each one a mile of the plains, each one a star in the desert sky. They have all done their job. They have carried you to the edge of the sea, to the edge of the day, and to the edge of your dreams. The last word of the story isn't end. The last word is stay. 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 The ritual of the suitcase. Before the Silver Zephyr can move, the traveler must prepare. This is a slow, tactile process. You are in a quiet room in a coastal inn in Maine. The floorboards are wide planked pine, polished to a soft glow. You open your suitcase. It is a sturdy piece of luggage, lined with striped silk. You begin to layer your belongings, not with haste, but with a sense of composition. The sweaters. You fold a heavy, cream-colored wool sweater. You press the air out of the fibers until it lies perfectly flat. It smells of cedar and home. The books. You choose 3 books. They are hardcovers with thick, cream-colored paper. You feel the weight of them in your hand, a solid, intellectual comfort. The linens. You tuck a small linen sachet of dried Maine blueberries and lavender into the corner. Every object you pack is a tether to the world you are leaving behind, and every empty space in the bag is an invitation for the world you are about to see. You click the latches shut. Snap. Snap. The sound is final. The preparation is complete. The walk to the station. The walk from the inn to the Portland station is a journey of 500 paces. The air is thick with the early morning, sea smoke, a mist that rises when the cold air meets the relatively warm water of the harbor. You listen to the sound of your own footsteps on the cobblestones. The heel, a solid, grounding strike. The toe, a soft, rolling push-off. The rhythm is slow. You are not rushing for a flight. You are walking toward a train. A train waits for you. A train has a schedule that feels like the movement of the tides, inevitable and calm. You pass a bakery where the first scent of yeast and warm flour is drifting into the street. You pass a sleeping cat on a granite doorstep. The city is yours in this private, quiet hour. The ticket, the contract of peace. Inside the station, you approach the wooden counter. The station agent wears a crisp navy blue uniform. He moves with the deliberate slowness of a man who has worked with the rails for 40 years. He hands you your ticket. It is long and narrow, printed on heavy paper with a faint watermark of a locomotive. The texture, you run your thumb over the raised ink. The meaning, this paper is a contract. It says that for the next 3,000 miles, you are no longer responsible for the world. You do not have to drive. You do not have to navigate. You do not have to decide. You are en route. You are in the in-between. To a traveler, the in-between is the safest place on earth. You are either here nor there. You are simply moving. You tuck the ticket into your breast pocket, feeling its slight weight against your chest. The waiting room, the liminal space. The waiting room of the station is a grand hall with a ceiling 40 feet high. Huge oak benches, smoothed by a century of waiting travelers, sit in long, parallel rows. You sit down. The wood is cool and solid. You look up at the departure board. It is an old-fashioned, split-flap display. Every few minutes, the letters begin to dance and spin with a rhythmic click, 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 rearranging themselves to show the status of the Silver Zephyr. Track 4. Asterisk on time. The sound of the board is like a deck of cards being shuffled by a giant. It is a soothing, mechanical chatter. You lean your head back against the oak. The air in the station is vast and still. You feel the pre-movement tension, a gentle, exciting vibration that hums in the floorboards. The train is coming. The journey is already real. The first glimpse of the silver. Then, a low vibration begins to rattle the glass in the high windows. It isn't a noise yet, it's a presence. The Silver Zephyr rounds the bend and slides into the station. It is a long, gleaming ribbon of stainless steel. It looks like it was carved from a single block of moonlight. The locomotive is a blunt, powerful nose of blue and silver, breathing out a faint, rhythmic hiss of steam. The conductor steps onto the platform. He carries a small wooden step stool. He places it on the ground with a soft thud. "All aboard," he says. He doesn't shout it. He says it like a secret, a quiet invitation to enter a different world.